Good evening, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the market kickoff with the Sunday Open with Nick. How are we all doing? Happy Father's Day to everybody out there, including me on this first and glorious Father's Day. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know about you guys. I had a very fun weekend. I actually got to spend it with my old man, which was always is an amazing thing when you don't live in the same state. So I had the glorious pleasure of welcoming my father here to Texas and hanging out with him getting to spend some time with his granddaughter. So I hope everybody has had a wonderful, wonderful Father's Day. If you haven't already, there's still time to call your dad. So I would highly recommend everybody do that before we really get going here on the show. This is going to be a weird week. I don't know about you guys. I never love, just to, I guess, clear the air, I never love trading roll week as a whole. And then you compile that with geopolitical headlines and potentially war in the Middle East and whatever's going on with crude oil and then to top it off with our lovely, I guess, the king of Father's Day himself, Daddy Powell, and the FOMC this week. It's shaping up for either a very entertaining, great trading week or something that could be pretty miserable to trade with factoring in things like rollover and options expiration at the end of the week, and volume being split on the September contract versus the June contract. It could be kind of messy. I never loved trading this week, and let's talk about it. Let's jump to the charts. So, as I said, this is, and I guess to compile that even further, like it's summer. Volume, I guess, came to life a little bit with the kind of the Middle East headlines, the Iran Israel news. So that pumped a little lifeblood into this market, but for the most part, I mean, it's still rollover. It's still the middle of June, and it's FOMC week. So we have that weird situation where the market may not wait for Wednesday to really make a real move. We can continue to see escalation or de-escalation in what's happened the last few days. And that could lead to us kind of continuing this zombie rally of summer back up towards the all-time high, or it could give the market a reason to sell off from here and retrace some of these levels and perhaps even test some of the bottom edges of the last few, I guess now, almost 6 weeks of balance. Perhaps even go fill that gap down into 5,700s. I mean, when there's these kind of war headlines and things going on and missiles being fired, it just creates a more illiquid tape on top of the already illiquid tape that it's going to kind of be this week with roll on the docket. So how did everyone do last week? Was everyone okay? Did you guys even trade to the shenanigans that was kind of, I don't know if anyone was paying attention on Thursday when we were doing trade the close, but Stowe and I were trading this miserable little consolidation up here around the 60-50s. And then, if you guys remember, there were internet issues. There was weird things going on. And then we had the headline news of the kind of the Israel-Iran conflict. And naturally we sold off from there. And where did we stop? Basically almost to the tick at the previous week low. So I don't know if anyone actually traded this. I know like half the internet was down during kind of the early part of this sell-off. Not half the internet. That's a very gross exaggeration, but you had all three of the major cloud providers, AWS, GCP, and Azure, were having issues, Cloudflare, and a bunch of other anyone that kind of uses those services, which is probably a good 80-90% of the internet traffic, is flowing through some of those cloud providers. So I know we Stowe and I even had some issues with closing out trades before this even happened. So there was no shock that we kind of sold off from that. And, if there were still those intermittent issues with the cloud providers and things, the continuation made sense. Where we bounced made even more sense, I guess, when you kind of see it in the pre-market. And this is kind of why we always talk about it. It makes sense to sometimes zoom out from a lot of us, focusing on our 1 minute charts, our someone like me, a 500 volume execution chart on NQ. And that can provide you with some longer time frame levels that it makes perfect sense, where you might find some longer time frame, some larger players stepping back in, let's say, to not necessarily buy the dip, but an area that they may absolutely kind of be sitting on the book and ready to start scooping up some lower prices in a situation like this, where if we look at where I know now it's like 2 weeks in a row of the same previous week low. So that 59 kind of 30s spot. And if you guys remember from last Sunday, my pivot was sitting, I think, around 35s. I dropped it just a touch. I basically was sitting at the value area low. If you remember this 3-week balance in ES we were sitting in, it made a lot of sense to kind of use the top edge of that value area to kind of act as, I'm really expecting it to act as support more than us potentially traversing to the bottom edge of this value area down to the balance area, not value area. Apologies there. But back down towards the 5850s. I just expected this to kind of act as a bit more resistance. But the last 2 weeks of lows here on ES is basically the grain of salt with me eyeballing this, but that was pretty much the point of control from that 3 weeks of balance that we were sitting in. So it makes a lot of sense that at least the bleeding was temporarily stopped there as we were gathering new information, kind of understanding what's going on with this conflict. Are we going to see any real escalation with it? So that's kind of where we're sitting going into this week. And as I said, it's roll week. Historically, I hate trading this week. I think XY and I have talked about it, but when you use volume and you use the delta of said volume to kind of guide a lot of your entries, exits, and strategy, and my edge is a lot of those type of things, and then using things like MGI as well to kind of keep you on the right side of some of those volume and delta based moves. When the volume then becomes split on 2 contracts and we're not necessarily all rolling, let's say to September, it just has always historically for me been a lighter week, a week that I just take a step back, keep size a little lighter, call green days winners, very early on in the session. If you hit that first trade, I kind of just get out of the market this week. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And if this is your first time seeing the show, we'll talk about some of those. We'll talk about, what is going on with as far as the economic releases this week. We'll talk a little bit about FOMC. Earnings is super light this week. So there's potentially going to be some opportunities here, but I'm not overly optimistic that I want to participate more than I would in, the average week. It's definitely going to be on a lower trade volume week for me, specifically just knowing that, and me having with the geopolitical headlines specifically, like no idea where we may go, what may happen. And then you factor that with roll and options expiration as well. Just never my favorite tape to trade. But how did you guys navigate this last week? I was pretty boring until Thursday, or really just Friday, if we really think about it, unless you were trading kind of the overnight session on Thursday and then pre-market. But Friday was a fun trade. I had a pretty good day, called it pretty early as we were kind of meandering around the 60-20s to 60-30s kind of highs. Like when we were stalling there for like after the Euro close, basically, and into lunchtime, I called it a week and decided to, do better things and not focus and try to find another trade potentially. So called it a good week there. And then you got a good retracement, and it kind of makes sense too. Like who wants to carry, trading up here a kiss away from the all-time high, and you have these headlines like who wants to carry all that risk into the weekend? So shocker that we kind of came down and retested the lows of the day, made a new low of the day, in fact, during power hours. So there were plenty of trades to be had on Friday if you were patient and not trying to catch the knife too early or fade that rally too early. So I'm optimistic that we may get some volatility this week. Obviously, with FOMC on Wednesday, it's very, very possible that this could be a great week to trade. But as I've said a few times, it's just not my favorite tape during rollover to do anything too heavy. So, but looking at this week, I'm not moving my pivot much. It's going to be just a few ticks down just to account kind of for the SPX and ES spread going to 0 towards the end of the week. So keeping it light, but I kind of want to see, once again, if we don't take out the last 2 weeks of lows, I'm optimistic that we're going to still be kind of meandering and balancing in this area. In fact, like at the absolute kind of extreme low, even with options and things, moving the market this week as well and rollover, I would not be shocked if we leave If we go any lower than like 58.50s, and I would be shocked if we kind of took out this this eye here, unless there was de-escalation in the conflict or Powell said something. I just would be optimistic that we're just going to continue to be range bound for the time being. It makes a lot of sense. And with that headline risk, I would not be shocked if we kind of came down and retested some of those lower areas of value from the last few weeks, in the last few sessions, not just few sessions, few weeks of sessions. So for me, areas to watch. I think 5,600, not 5,600, 6,000 is still going to act and be a bit of a magnet at times. We've traded a ton of volume around there. It is last week's. It's previous month. That's why it is. That is basically May's value area high, as well as even last week's value area low. So kind of even just looking at this week, it's a decent pivot just to kind of keep you on the right side of momentum. If you're not finding buyers wanting to initiate back above, let's say that 6,000 area this week on ES and SPX. Did my charts just, okay, there we go. I was like, did I just lose my cursor? So this conjunction little area here from last week, that's going to be a big option strike. You have 6,000 on the SPX chain expiring for the June expiry coming up here, and I would expect that to act as support, act as resistance throughout the week. So just an important area to watch. Like I said, I'd be shocked if we go take out these highs with everything going on, at least in the pre-FOMC side. Who knows what Powell says in the press conference and how they're kind of now shaping up for potentially, cuts sooner with the cool CPI and PPI data last week. So could give us a reason to rally if they start talking a little bit more about rate cuts and give the market a little bit of momentum to kind of push us up into the rally that is summer and the seasonality that continues to kind of add that positive momentum. And perhaps we go take out the all-time high. But I don't know. With everything going on, who knows? So I would kind of be gauging around that area too, just seeing as you have that confluence of May's value area high and last week's value area low sitting right there on an options expiration week. It makes sense that we would at least touch it and potentially consolidate here before a real decision is kind of made. And if we start building above it, then yeah, absolutely, we can go retest kind of the highs of Thursday, and it would make a lot of sense to potentially do that. To the downside, like I said, my pivot, the last week's low makes a lot of sense, but do be on the lookout kind of even a little further down towards 5,900. If we got some real weakness or more escalation in this conflict, I would not be shocked if we kind of traverse the other side of that 3-week balance as well. So, all right, we got about 90 seconds here until the Globex Open. Any predictions, guys, as we're heading into this roll week, FOMC week? It is Father's Day. How's everyone feeling? Are we gapping up, gapping down, opening right around settlement? Let's hear from you guys in the chat. What are everyone's thoughts on how we're going to open here? We'll watch it on my execution chart as we kind of get into the open here in about 60 seconds. But I don't really know. I don't really have a good edge or thought on where this may go. If I was a betting man, I guess I'd say small gap down. I mean, we did last week. It was kind of retraced, but I don't know. Crude is definitely about to blow some accounts. I think if you guys remember we'll talk about it. We'll wait till we get there. We'll watch the open here in 25 seconds. But I was cautiously bullish to break the balance range that we were sitting at the top of below the old balance range. But boy, geopolitical headlines can absolutely just send crude so much higher. And God knows it can continue from there as it's kind of just sitting around 74s. Does it come back down and retouch like the 71s? Probably, but it's probably going to continue from there. I never loved shorting crude. It never really makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll see. Globex Open here in a few seconds. We'll watch it on my ES execution chart. Oh, we got a big gap down. About 100 points on NQ. Sorry. Probably. There it is. Gosh, I was like, where's my chart? I realized how zoomed in I was there. So we did gap down as well on ES, down to about 59.45s, 44s exactly. So that's a little more than I was expecting. I'm sure everybody in the chat that was calling for gap down. I didn't expect even that much. Yeah, that was fun. So small gap down from settlement. Oh, not small gap down. Smaller gap down on ES, rather, about 40 points from where we kind of closed on Friday. As I said too, guys, it's rollover, so you kind of take everything with a grain of salt. Oh, that's why it was so weird. My trading view charts rolled, and I was not even aware, and I was wondering why these prices kind of made no sense. So they rolled to the September contract. That's annoying. But yeah, so we'll talk about this too, as far as when to roll, I guess. I always use, let me grab this, hang on. So some people love to just roll, I guess, starting now and you trade it the whole week. I usually will wait until I see at least 50% of the CME's volume, so their reported volume, actually flip to the September contract. So I'm in no rush. I'll kind of wait and watch the early parts of this week to see when does volume actually shift to the higher contract. But this is the site that they post. This is data that they post, and it's just a good way during this week to kind of just tell you which one's getting more volume. I would imagine tomorrow we don't see anywhere near a 50-50 split, but as we get closer to like Wednesday and Thursday, usually the higher volume will shift to September, and then I will roll by then. But there's been weird weeks. Sometimes I don't roll till the following Sunday. We've had a few of those, so I think it just kind of depends. But I would expect volume by Thursday or so that it makes no sense to trade June anymore. So we'll see. We'll see how it kind of shakes out in the early part of this week. NQ September contract is at 21,770s. Hey, 20. Good to see you. Yeah, I didn't jump at the NQ. Let's actually see. Just because we're on this for a hot second here before we jump to NQ, but oops. Volume open interest. So that's how you do it too. You go to the CME's website, you go to markets, and then you can select the mini and NASDAQ or ES or oil, whatever it is, because obviously the other products roll a little different than the indices. But then you just scroll down and it'll give you the volume, open interest, all the other fun stuff. So just a good thing to help you when you're on roll week. Mark, I don't know what NinjaTrader uses specifically to, I guess, that little pop-up that'll show up and kind of articulate a way to roll. But I know you can set your own parameters on what you want to define. But as far as that pop-up and kind of that indication that, hey, you should roll, I don't know what formula exactly the devs behind the scene have built into kind of pushing you to potentially roll, or at least giving you the pop-up or option to. But I think everyone has their own way of doing it. I've just always wait for volume. And then I back adjust mine slightly. So, but I just do what other people have told me over time, and had success with as far as contract roll, as far as how they kind of move things, because obviously it can affect stuff like MGI and other data too. So one of the million reasons I hate trading this week, and even parts of the early part of next week too, just because, like I said, MGI and other things are just not quite perfect and functioning. So makes sense just to keep it light. It's FOMC week, never everyone's favorite week to trade. But yeah, so far this gap up is looking like it's going to be filled rather quickly. But yeah, ES on the September contract is trading around 6,020s currently, 6,017 to be exact. So I will roll when volume rolls. But let's keep rolling here. So I think we talked about ES, that week open if someone has the week open on the September contract, just because I haven't rolled, throw it in the chat. I'd love to actually see it or know what the number is off the top of my head. But the week open for the June contract going to be sitting right around 59.50. So number to keep in the back of your mind and have an idea, because as we continue to see, guys, this acts as a pretty good support and resistance, just MGI level, just to think about. I think there were a number of good trades to potentially take off of the week open when you saw that supportive volume kind of come in. But I was watching a few, I think it was Tuesday. Might have been Tuesday, or maybe it was when I was on Trade the Close. But there were a couple. Actually, I think I was on with XY. Yeah, it might have been Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day that was. My week days are blurring together, guys, so I apologize. But it still does tend to act as a very good level to just have marked and potentially look for the opportunity to take a trade off of. Oh yeah, and if rollover FOMC wasn't enough for you guys this week, the markets are closed on Thursday. We will be closing in the observance of the Juneteenth holiday, so the markets will be closed on Thursday. So another wrinkle in this lovely trading week is another holiday this week. So we'll have some fun with that on Friday, I'm sure, but everyone gets a nice little break from trading on Thursday. Unfortunately for all of our traders and probably some of our European friends that say the US has too many holidays where the market's closed. It's another one, guys. It is what it is, but you really won't get the, I guess, reaction to FOMC until Friday. And then we have options. So we may not even get the real reaction to whatever the Fed says until the following week. So as I said, this is just not going to be my favorite week to trade, just being honest. There's just a lot of those things where it makes it a little less fun. And, holidays are never great. And then a holiday in the summer too, to kind of trade around with FOMC and with rollover. You guys see where I'm going. It's one of those weeks. So our futures open on Thursday, just stocks. I would imagine they're partially open, at least for the overnight, and probably maybe they close at 8:30. I don't know. I didn't check exactly how this holiday sits. If it's one of those ones where futures are open till noon, or if they close at 8:30 and then they open again at 5 o'clock Central. Not 100% sure. I will double check, but I don't know off the top of my head. If anyone in the chat does know the futures hours for Thursday, throw them in there. Yeah. XY, thank you. Yeah. So futures are partially open. So probably is that noon close, noon Central. So I never recommend trading those days, guys. Like enjoy the morning, do something else. For those of you that work at 9 to 5, like there's probably better uses of your time. Take the much needed break too. Like when the market gives us a holiday in the middle of the week, it's a good chance to just, if you're a full-time trader like me, like go run some errands, go be a dad, go work out, just kind of sleep in a little bit instead of staring at charts. Take a day off during the week. We don't usually get those very often. So, or I guess if you ask of my buddies in Spain and Germany who I trade with, and I've been friends with for a few years, they always feel like we have a holiday almost every single week. That ruins their trading since they trade the US markets. So always makes me laugh, but I digress. NQ. So we opened almost to the tick on the June contract, basically at the top edge of the value area high of this 3-week balance. And basically in this new, hang on. Gotta wait for the cursor to load. We back? There we go. All right. So the top edge of this, the old 3 weeks of consolidation in the value areas we see here, you saw, I think we talked about this last Sunday, but that confluence of those 3 back-to-back weeks value area highs kind of being sitting right around the 500 mark on NQ. And that was an area I was telling everybody to watch last Sunday too, of just, if we got some downside, that'd be your first place I would expect buyers. And even the geopolitical headlines and everything from Thursday night, that's pretty much where we stopped, right around 5s. And even in this Globex session to kick us off here on Sunday, the gap down went right there, kind of that value area high from that old balance. And it is the bottom of this auto plot balance area from the last 2 weeks from Orderful Labs that's been auto printed here. So just like we were saying last Sunday, and to get some real downside, I mean, you'd have to see the 500s really break. And then we probably traverse down towards the 21,000s. And that would make sense too if we start to really get some weakness. That okay, yeah, we traded through this entire balance area here of the last 2 weeks, and then if we were to break inside of that old 3-week balance, maybe we go retest the bottom edge of it. So something to just keep in the back of your head. If you do see more geopolitical headlines, if you do see more weakness in the market, that'd be the next spot I'd be looking to find buyers, is somewhere between this kind of 21,100s and then down to probably 21 evens. I would expect buyers just going back from these first 2 weeks when we kind of were trading around there. That I guess is what I'm saying, is like I would expect to be defended kind of the bottom edge of those value areas. So, but since it's summer and since we're all super bullish and hoping for a new all-time high by July 4th, if you guys remember, last Sunday we were talking about, I'll pull them. Why not? We got time. It's my show. We were talking about the all-time high areas to watch. So to the upside, in the event that we go back up to the upside, head towards 22,000, 21,900s, those next areas to watch that I would expect to potentially be reoffered and not to, ruin the potential march to a new all-time high in 23,000, as we've been joking about on Trade the Close. The areas that we're going to have to get through to the upside, obviously 22,000, big psychological number, but these 22,200s to 300s definitely is an area I would expect. And when we were trading here back in kind of the end of February, pre-Valentine's Day massacre that started, those 300s, kind of the bottom edge of that week of balance that we were seeing pre-OPEX Friday when we started melting. But there's a lot of confluence there with kind of the bottom edge of that little balance area, as well as the top of that 22,300 spot. So I would expect, at least on the first crack at us trying to make a new all-time high, that we find some longer time frame sellers still present in that area. Granted, take these numbers with a grain of salt in case we see volume flip by FOMC or whatever, and we're on the September contract. So obviously these numbers will change, but areas I'm watching is still going to be to the upside, that 22,200s to 300 spot, for potentially a longer time frame seller to step in and at least defend, at least give us a short-term top in that area. Not that I'm calling a top, but I would just expect that to act as resistance the same way we've kind of talked about. We're not getting a ton of volume build above 22,000 on NQ. So I know we continue to build and it's summer and slow volume, but we just keep finding sellers up here near the top edge of this. Every time we've come up towards 22,000s, even back 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, post NVIDIA earnings here, we find sellers, just passive sellers continuing to step in there and giving the market, I guess, a reason to sell. And obviously some of these coincide with headlines and the tariff war and geopolitical news. So it just, like I said, it's kind of like almost like a passive seller stepping in there, given that they were just gifted a reason to get out. So, and how close we are to all-time highs, I'm just keeping that in the back of my mind, that up here, if I'm long, like if you catch that long around here, 600s, 500s, and you're kind of riding this up to 9s, like I'm mostly out. Like you're in runners or something if you catch that big move. And I know these ranges have been somewhat contracted with the summer volume that we've been seeing, but yeah, we just keep finding sellers up here around 22K. So until the market can really give me a good build above that, and I see a good value area build, like with 20, probably between I want to see a week of a value area basically building like 22,000 even to kind of these 22,200s. That would give me at least indication that we're seeing volume at these higher prices, and then it makes sense that we could continue to make that Independence Day march to a new all-time high, make everybody happy. So that's NQ. As I was saying, if we kind of lose 500s, I would expect us to go rotate down towards the 21,100s, kind of retest the value area lows here. I know, 20. I was kind of shocked that we spent as little time down here as we did, but we've just kind of wicked right off of that. And that's two touches at that like kind of 450s, 460s mark. Or I guess 470s. Sorry, don't want to misrepresent the actual to the tick spot there, but the more we kind of test some of these lows, I would expect us to kind of break them. So we're trading around that area now. We'll see. I want this gap to be filled at the very least. I hate Sunday gaps that are so like within 30, 40 points on NQ to not be filled. So we'll see. I would expect, since we've seen at least that 500 wick kind of hold for now, that we probably will go fill that gap. But for everybody that's joined us a little late, happy Father's Day once again. My wife and daughter gave me this hat today, and that was fun. A few pictures from the first couple of weeks of the newborn phase. So had a good Father's Day myself. Wife made some pancakes and bacon. It was a good day. Like I said, my dad's been here, so looking forward to finishing up with y'all and going to cook some good ribeyes for my old man too. So speaking of cooking, let's talk about crude oil. That is absolutely cooking to the upside. Let's jump to crude. So I framed it where it is jumping in here because I want to talk a little bit about last Sunday's show. Because we opened just at the very top of this, if you guys remember, this little balance area, this auto plot one that's still sitting here. But this balance area between 64s and 60, let's call it 60/50s, that had kind of auto plot printed from the order for the labs indicator, basically just creating that balance area that we were sitting in. And we opened last Sunday sitting right around here at the 64s. And we had talked about the old balance area and the old kind of 3-month consolidation that crude was in, kind of between like rollovers and things, grain of salt, but basically was trading psychologically between 70 and call it 66s, with the lower wicks at 65 and kind of teetering into the mid 70s. And we had talked last Sunday about looking for an opportunity to potentially kind of buy this, around the 63s to potentially get long for that break of balance into the old balance range, that wider one. And oh boy, with geopolitical things, crude did an absolute hold my beer move up to 74s where we are currently trading. Oh, excuse me, 75s. I missed the fact that crude gapped up even to last week's high. So when there's geopolitical news, I mean, I think I've said this on this show, and when I was doing this myself previously, I never loved fading crude or shorting crude. I mean, even in the drill baby drill kind of 4-hour trend down that we were seeing down towards the 56s, I'm just never a fan of really wanting to short crude. I think there's just too much like headline risk for this parabolic type move to happen at almost any time. It's just never my favorite. I guess, like, I'll short the Rusty and I have no problem shorting equities, I guess. But for some reason, something in my brain just says, don't short crude, like, ever, even when it's moving down. Like, I guess I look for scalps to the long side when I've traded it too. I never loved shorting crude. And after a move like this, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, can I get an opportunity to buy it, slightly lower? Like maybe we come down here and retest like 71.46, perhaps even last week's value area high over here at 72.50s. It's hard to fight when that narrative shifts and you've got war headlines and geopolitical things. It's just, you just got to find it. Just like we were saying when we talked about GC, when you have the uncertainty in the markets and when we're moving down, when the tariff headlines and not crude and gold's just parabolically moving to the upside, it's just hard to fight that narrative. And this is a situation just like that, when that's kind of what the tape's doing. And it's just looking for a way to get long with this. Do we come down here towards the, 69 area and kind of close this RTH gap that printed here? Very possible, but you'd really want to see us kind of building volume below the 72 mark. Yeah. Thank you everybody for being here and hanging out on this Father's Day. Appreciate our admins behind the scenes. Wishing me a happy Father's Day. But yeah, looking at this, I mean, I would not expect us to come down and retest this week, at least down here towards 65 to kind of retest the breakout. That's probably going to come in the coming months, weeks, with everything going on. But for me, just looking at this, knowing the top edge of the old balance is kind of sitting, I guess, right around where this wick was from last week, kind of around the 70-80s mark. I would not be shocked to see us I mean, who knows with headlines. I always like to frame this as like, this is not a trade thesis. This is just an idea looking at the volume build here from last week is, can I get an opportunity to long? Like, do we come down here and kind of retest the bottom edge of this consolidation that you saw in the latter half of the week, down towards the 72s to 71s? That's where I'd probably take a stab long. Hopefully that, you get the opportunity to get into it, but from here to the upside, if we just continue to see, a parabolic move, you've got up towards the 77s. Obviously, we just kind of are cooling off a little bit from where we gapped up to, and even last week's high, but sitting around kind of these 74.90s to 75.30s, going to act as probably a little bit of support here, at least in the early part of this week. But to the upside, up towards 77s when we made that wild move towards the end of last year. And ever since, obviously, Trump took office and he was talking about, the plans to open up like more pipelines and more, basically potentially create a lot more supply on the market. We started that move down. So now we're talking about those areas up here towards 77s. And I think the high, I mean, this is the rollover one. So maybe that was it. But I think this is when we hit like 82 or something, 81s in like the December contract from last year when we were sitting here. I think maybe grain of salt there. But that's kind of where we're sitting to the upside. And then from there, like I said, that old balance area between kind of 66s to 71s, like there's been so much volume, and I know crude likes to live in that area for months at a time sometimes. So that's kind of something I'd be using and keeping in the back of my head, that even though we're trading up here, you've got resistance up here at last week's high, but knowing that crude has basically for a good portion of last year and even in the early parts of this year, just been range bound basically in this week's volume. Like when you look at last week's volume build, that's basically been the range for, months and months at a time in crude. So I'm just thinking about that and knowing that it's very possible if things cool off in the Iran Israel conflict, that this could absolutely go traverse back down and fill in some of this volume build even from last week, and perhaps go retest it, like I said, down towards the 69s. But that old balance area basically is the top edge of this box down towards kind of call it, I mean, probably even where this low is would make sense on the roll contract, down towards kind of the mid 66s. That's where a ton, like if you guys remember, like July through like July through I want to say November, like we were just stuck in that range in crude. So something I'm keeping an eye on and thinking about. But yeah, equities continue to kind of drift back up. ES is getting close to filling that gap, but not quite there. So got to get to kind of the high 70s to fill the gap, I believe. I didn't exactly see where we truly closed. If we see a drop in crude, then ES will drift back up. I mean, no, not necessarily. They're not really that correlated from anything I trade. And when you have, war headlines that can kind of affect both markets a little differently. I mean, it can send crude even higher, and it could cause equities to kind of be a little soft and create some weakness and sell down again. And positive news like de-escalation obviously is going to do the opposite. So partially just based on those headlines, I mean, there could be a little correlation as far as, when crude selling, equities could bid a little bit, but I wouldn't use that as a trade thesis. Like equities are selling off, I'm going to long crude is not a good trade thesis with what's going on as far as headlines go. But sometimes they're correlated, but more often than not, I don't use any sort of correlation between them. God, can we just go fill the gap? Make me happy. All right. So gold still in this very wide multi-week balance that we continue to see. Last Sunday, we did not see the continuation in weakness. It just kind of got some momentum to the upside. And I know we had talked about kind of 34s being at least a temporary ceiling, but so far we've busted through it. And now I would expect if we get any continuation in weakness in equities, we'll probably go take out this high and make a new all-time high in GC. That shouldn't shock anybody. Like I said, it just kind of gives more momentum to the upside as far as, we're continuing to sell off. There's uncertainty in the world and the markets. What do? You buy gold. That's what everyone seems to do in situations like this. Whenever there's uncertainty, whenever there's recession fears, whenever there's, war headlines and things, like gold just tends to perform well. So that may continue to be the case. This may give it additional fuel that it needs to go take out this all-time high. And with that momentum and with the kind of structure that we saw and potentially what we are seeing, we'll have to watch kind of us trading right here in kind of the high 34s. The top edge of this this profile from, what is this, early May? That top edge of that is sitting around 34.75s. So we pierce above that where we're very close right now. I would say, let's go make a new all-time high. Let's go hit 35.50s and make everybody happy. Was long and crude for this break of balance. Not long and crude, long and gold for this break of balance. I think would make a lot of people happy. I was expecting the break to the downside, perhaps go retest some of these old areas down in like the 32s, 31s, and we just didn't seem to do it. So from here, if we fail up in the 35s, I would expect us to come back down towards kind of last week's value area high sitting here around the 34.10s. Perhaps we find some more buyers there defending. It does coincide with the top edge of this box, this auto plot box that was drawn from these last few weeks of volume. So same thing. Do we go retest the top edge of this breakout? If it is in fact a breakout, and then that's a decent long, and think to maybe go try to ride this to, at least on the swing time frame for the rest of the week, like go make a new all-time high. Or do we fail at 34s and we continue to chop and consolidate between 3,300 and 3,400 until there's new news or anything else kind of continuing to drive us higher or lower? So I don't love trading this, slop that has been the chop and wide consolidation that we've been in for weeks in gold. But this is pretty constructive to potentially go make a new all-time high. Weird, my trading view shows NQ and ES gapped up. So it doesn't. It's the rollover. They rolled contracts, and I am a little shocked that they did it on the Sunday. Sometimes they just randomly do it on days with trading view. I never love that there's no system. It just randomly happens. And volume hasn't flipped, so it's not even like they did it for that. But yeah, they rolled, so that's why you're seeing a that it looks like we're up 200 points from Friday, but we're not. So it's ignore that. We had that gap down. Gap's almost filled, and we're almost trading right around Friday's settlement. But yeah, as I said, can we get a retest down here towards kind of basically this volume shelf that's sitting right here from the last 5 days of profile here and last week's value area high sitting here around 34.10s. That would make sense, like I said, to potentially get long to try to grind this to an all-time high. Trade event notification said volume flipped on NQ. I don't know. Check the CME site. I mean, maybe the September contract's getting more so far here for Globex, but for me, I have no intention of changing until at least I start to see that volume build on the September contract during RTH more than anything. Like Globex volume, it's art. Yeah, just another reason I don't trade Globex too. You're talking about split contracts, split volume during the overnight session early in the week, but yeah, it's going to be a weird week, guys, with volume being split for the early part of it. So check the CME site throughout the early parts of the session, see where it's trading tomorrow morning before the open. I would imagine it's still pretty much on the June contract, or at least the bulk. Personal recommendation, you guys do what you want to, but until there's 50% of the volume plus on September, I would tell you don't roll. That's always what I've used. It's always what smarter traders than me have said. Like you really got to wait for the volume. So don't even sniff September until you see 51% of the volume for the session sitting on that contract. Just go to the CME's like product homepage, and then you kind of go over the overlay. Let me see if I can grab it again. You can get the exact URL. Yeah. So just go to cmegroup.com and you go up here to markets. You go to the S&P. Oops. And then go to volume and open interest. And it'll tell you the contracts. So this is from Friday. the volume from Friday's close. So it'll give you that data from Friday. So as far as Friday goes, most of the volume, 2/3 of the volume was still sitting on the June contract. But good, it's a good site to have bookmarked for this exact week every quarter. I'd highly recommend you do that unless you have unless you're already like coded into your trading platform, whether it's Ninja or something else that you've already like coded in or told the system like how you want to roll. And then it auto does it when the criteria is met. But otherwise, if you're doing it manually, sometimes like I am on certain platforms, like just use volume to kind of guide it. And then just by feel too. If the tape's a little illiquid on one, and it's still quite not there, you just give it a little more time, or just don't trade a ton this week. Keep it light. And don't trade the early part of this week. Come back into it towards the end of the week, whatever you want to do. But volume Monday and Tuesday is going to be wonky. And then by hopefully Wednesday, Thursday, or I don't know, Thursday, we have a holiday. So that may be a reason too, that we may see volume shift a little earlier this week because of the market holiday on Thursday. Like that could be a reason that we all are rolling, Tuesday after the close, because we saw the volume kind of split towards the end. So we'll see. I don't think we've had a holiday in the middle of the week on a roll week in a while. So could be a little wonky, as I said. Keep it light this week. That's what I recommend. But let's let me just minimize. That's all I got to do. Duh. But yeah, I think we've talked enough about this. So we'll jump to we got 15 minutes. We'll jump to, what was I doing? Go back to this. Earnings real quick. There's not much. So earnings this week, super, super light. In fact, there's nobody I'm really paying attention to or giving much weight to care about this week. I mean, you've got Corn Ferry, you've got Kroger, something to sometimes pay attention to, but Accenture. But for the most part, guys, this is a super light week, and this is there's no single company that's the main event that's giving us any reason to, I guess, care about earnings and earnings from a couple companies actually moving the markets for futures for us. So not a whole lot to talk about here. Even if you're a single stock options trader or something, this is not your week to really care a whole lot. So we'll jump to the economic calendar. As I said, the big events this week is going to be on Wednesday with our lovely Fed chairman and the FOMC giving us their rate decision. We'll talk about that in a minute. But on Monday, going into tomorrow morning, we do have the New York State Manufacturing Index pre-market at 7:30 Central Time. So another gotcha. But the only reason I'm even giving Monday and tomorrow, I guess, time is, do you guys remember, I guess it was last month, the 20-year auction caused a nice little move to the downside in the market on pretty poor results. So, I mean, things have escalated from there. We had a 10-year last week. That was pretty good. I think we even had a long bond auction for the 30-year as well. So, but I only bring this up because when the 20-year happened, I mean, we had a very, very poor reaction to it last time. So just something to keep in mind. These still can and will move the market around lunchtime. Doesn't mean they do every time, but they do. It usually is, the results come in like 2 to 3 minutes after 12 o'clock. So like by 12:02, 12:03, the market gets the data and the results from the auction. And then you kind of get the knee-jerk reaction from the algos and from the markets. So we'll see if this does cause anything, but I only bring it up because last time it was rather violent and yields kind of shot up post auction. So like I said, the 10-year was good. The 30-year was okay. Last week. So, but just be aware, we do have one tomorrow at lunchtime. So 12 o'clock Central. And then on Tuesday, our usual releases at 7:30 Central. So we do have retail sales, import exports, as well as, I think those were on Wednesday morning. The other ones I'm thinking of. Yeah, really just those. Business inventories at 9 a.m. and a 5-year auction at lunchtime on Tuesday. And then Wednesday is the main event. That's what I was looking for. Wednesday in the pre-market, we do housing starts and building permits, as well as initial jobless claims and continuing jobless claims. So nothing we haven't all traded through. If you do trade the pre-market with our jobless claims, we had NFP a few weeks ago. So continuing to kind of watch some of these as well. And then the main event, I will be live on Wednesday with y'all for Trade the Close. I think with XY and I will be trading the post Fed decision reaction, and then we'll have all the fun of trading the press conference with Daddy Pal himself. Happy Father's Day, Jerome. During his presser, trading the close and trying to find opportunities. We'll see how it goes. I've traded it for fun in sim accounts because I don't usually put a lot of money at risk and want to put any capital at risk during the press conference, but we'll see what happens. We'll see how I'm feeling. We'll see if we'll throw on some trades or just, articulate what we're seeing with delta and volume and things and try to find some opportunities to scalp around the presser. It usually is fun. Oh, I'm going to be doing it with Stowe this week on Wednesday. XY's too busy to trade the press conference with me. I see where your loyalty lies, sirs. So Stowe and I on Wednesday afternoon will have some fun with y'all and trade the presser and try to not get absolutely punched in the face. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then, as I said, I think everybody in the chat has also said, Thursday, we have a market holiday. It is the Juneteenth holiday. So markets will be closed. Futures will be open partially. So if you're trading, find something better to do with your day. But, you guys are going to do what you will. We're all traders. I understand. I'm guilty of taking a trade during like a half day future session like that. I've traded Thanksgiving for some reason. And then like those days leading up to it when the market's on half days and things. So, you guys do what you want. But that one's probably not the best holiday to trade. I just would imagine volume's not going to be there, but we'll see. And then Friday, we ran out the week with the Philly Fed, manufacturing index, business conditions, CapEx, employment, new orders, prices fed, all the cavalcade of the Philly Fed data coming in. And then Baker Hughes on Friday for our crude traders. So that's the week. A lot of data, the main event on Wednesday. And then it is obviously with rollover, it is options expiration as well. So Friday with roll with options expiration probably gets a little wonky. So usually a good idea to call your day early if you can. You get a good winner, go touch grass. It's summertime. Should be doing better things with your Friday afternoons. That's why a lot of companies I think do between Memorial Day and Labor Day, they do like half day Fridays, or they do events and other things in Friday afternoons. At least some of the companies I used to work for, not tech, but the same principle. It's summer, kids are out of school, so if you catch a good trade early Friday morning, that's when you usually call it. Have some fun, do something else, touch some grass. Always my advice. So, since it's Father's Day, we're gonna do a quick recap. Get out of here. Looks like ES did in fact close the gap. NQ, someone else can confirm because I'm eyeballing it on the other side of my screen if NQ did close the gap. Looks like it did. So that's always good. We got those out of the way. We don't have to worry about potentially closing it when we're trading much lower another time during this week. So always love when those get filled. But a quick recap of ES, and then we'll let you all get out of here. And everyone can go enjoy the rest of your Father's Day. I'm going to go throw some ribeyes on the grill for myself and my old man, some scalloped potatoes. Gonna be a nice evening. Enjoy the rest of it. So, as I was saying, on ES, we gapped down the week open just around the 59.50 level, a little bit lower, down here towards the 40s. My weekly pivot is going to be sitting basically where it was last week, a few points lower, but I would like to see us kind of come in and challenge that 3-week balance area as point of control, which would be sitting just a little lower than that. So for me, the last week's low, if we keep testing them, I would expect we get a more violent move to the downside once it does break. So I'm going to be using this to act as support for the time being, potentially look for, kind of longs off those mid 59.30s. But it would not shock me, given options expiration, given rollover, if we do see some continuation, some additional weakness, some more headlines, that we might go retest 5900s. Just given a big option strike and things like that too. And all the volume that's traded here from that 3 weeks of balance, it just wouldn't shock me to at least go test it a little lower. To the upside, I'm still watching last week's value area high up here at the 60-50s kind of spot. We just continue to kind of re-offer up there. And obviously we just couldn't find buyers. Even pre Israel-Iran news on Thursday when we were having those internet issues, like there was just no initiation from buyers kind of above last week's value area high, like at all. You just could not find anybody interested in buying this above 60-50s for some reason on Thursday. So I'm taking that into consideration just to see, like, do we find them? Do we get any upside momentum? And can we go challenge, a little higher up towards the 61s, 6100s and back up towards the all-time high? So we'll see, but I'm not overly optimistic for a, crazy range this week. Like I said, if we got much lower than 58.50s, I'd be shocked. And there probably is some headline risk continuing to drive us lower. But in the event that we kind of lose my pivot, I would expect us to go, traverse the other side of that balance in the last few weeks. So that's it. unless anyone's got some questions, we'll wrap it up here so that everyone can go enjoy the rest of their Father's Day. For all the dads out there, I do once again wish you guys a lovely and happy Father's Day. It is my first Father's Day. I've had a wonderful, wonderful afternoon with my daughter, my wife, and my old man who came into town this week. So I'm going to go enjoy the rest of that with them, unless there are some questions. Give everyone 30 seconds here to roll one in the chat. Otherwise I'm out. And we'll go on with our week, but we'll just wrap it up. So that's the plan, guys. Thank you all for being here. I know the rest of the team will be back tomorrow morning to give you guys some great content, some good pre-market analysis. The much smarter individuals than myself will be back to help guide you in the pre-market tomorrow morning. And I believe Tanya will be on to trade the open and have some fun with you guys in the morning session, followed by myself and XY in the afternoon to trade the close with you guys and have a little fun with Power Hour. So thank you all for being here. Happy Father's Day to all the dads and daddies out there. I really appreciate everybody being here, everyone hanging tight and having some fun with me this evening. Everyone, trade safe. It's going to be a weird tape. It's rollover week. It's FOMC week. Be smart this week. Do not blow your account trading some of this split volume and volatility that is possible this week. Everybody trade safe. Everybody have fun. Have a great rest of your Father's Day and evening. And I will see you all tomorrow afternoon to trade the close. Cheers.